You don't have a ton of startup funds and you're balancing in your head, like, do I want to spend $1,000 on education or do I want to try to do this based on YouTube? This is the one that you guys need to be spending 90% of your money on, talking to sellers, reaching out to sellers. We are the biggest on direct mail, but we also understand it is not cheap. If you have less money behind you, I think cold calling is a phenomenal place to start. Maybe you have ongoing education costs. Maybe you have ongoing software costs, which isn't that much. $200 and a phone to make some phone calls is extremely powerful. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Real Estate Investing Podcast. I'm your host, Ron Apke, and today in this episode, we are talking about startup money. How much money do you actually need to get started in land flipping, land investing? I'm going to try to be as transparent and honest with you guys as possible. People are starting in all different spots, and I'm going to talk about the keys when you're starting up this business, where you should be putting money, where you shouldn't be putting money, how to scale up once you have some money coming in. So really excited about this topic. I think it's going to be extremely valuable for those of you who maybe are thinking about this business, are thinking about coming into land. Maybe you have a 9-to-5 and you can put some money towards something like this, but maybe you don't have all the time in the world for this. A lot of different situations, and I'm going to try to cover as many as I can in this episode. So really excited to get started here. Other than that, let's get to it. So when you are first getting into something, like, you have a choice. I think with anything, when you're coming into it from the start, you have a choice. Like, there's a balance between speed and money, I think. Like, and the question is, like, should you pay for education? Should you get education or should you get it organically on YouTube for free and all these other spots? We put out a ton of free content where you could probably piece stuff together and figure out how to do this business, but you're going to be sacrificing a ton of time because it's not going to be fully outlined. So the number one thing when you're starting in something like this, like a side hustle, if you're thinking about coming in this business, it's probably a side hustle at first. Maybe it's not, and you have more money behind you, then that's not really the case. You should be probably investing in education if you have money behind you. But like, you don't have a ton of startup funds and you're balancing in your head, like, do I want to spend $1,000 on education or do I want to try to do this based on YouTube, based on podcasts, based on all these other things? And it's really a personal preference. Like, I'm not going to tell you one way or the other. I can tell you the pros and cons of both. The cons of doing it yourself are it's extremely time intensive. You will probably still make mistakes. Sometimes you can make more sometimes the mistakes are more costly than the education that you would have paid for. Like, that's what I see the most of, is people who tried to figure out this business. They sent some direct mail. Direct mail is really expensive. If you mess up when you're sending direct mail, it can be thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars of a mistake versus, I'm not saying you won't make mistakes. If you have education behind you, you will, and expect to make mistakes, but hopefully some of those are mitigated from the education. And then pros and cons of buying education. I mean, the pro is pretty straightforward. Like, as long as it's a good program you're investing in or good education that you're investing in, it makes sense for sure. But obviously you're putting some money out of your pocket. So that could be money that would be going towards marketing. That could be going towards whatever it is, reaching out to sellers, anything like that. But your education is going to be much more straightforward. It's going to be sequential, where you getting education on YouTube can be, like I said, it's like plugging and playing. You're trying to figure out things. You're trying to piece together certain situations. So that's a number one thing. When you're starting out, an education can vary from as little as probably $99 all the way up to some people $20,000 plus if you're doing really intensive coaching or something like that. So there's different levels to it for sure. And that's what and you can start free on YouTube, like I said. So that's what you need to decide. Like, if you're looking to get in this business, okay, do I want to try to do this myself, piece things together, or do I want to put some money out for education and to have the resources behind me? Number two, and this is the one that you guys need to be spending 90% of your money on. Like, if you have whatever, it doesn't matter how much money you have, it matters how much money you're willing to put in this business. And then 90% of it needs to go towards marketing. So marketing, there's a lot of different forms of marketing. When I'm saying marketing, I'm referring to talking to sellers, reaching out to sellers. And you can do this via text. You can do this via cold call. You can do this via direct mail. we are the biggest on direct mail, but we also understand the money that goes into direct mail. It is not cheap. It's 60 plus cents per mailer. So every time you're sending a mailer to someone, it's 60 cents. So we get a deal for about every 2,500 mailers or so. So you're in about $1,500, $1,600 of marketing money just with 2,500 pieces of mail. And that should get you a deal. Is it going to get you a deal over time? Absolutely not. Where cold calling, if you're cold calling yourself, you can get 1,000 cold calls done yourself for probably a couple $100, just getting the data, getting the phone numbers, everything like that, probably $150, $200 or so. So that's what you're really weighing, but how long is it going to take you to make 1,000 phone calls? What's going to be your success rate with that? But if you have less money behind you, if you're not in a rush, like I think cold calling is a phenomenal place to start, where you can get a deal, 2 deals under your belt. If you don't have the money behind you to send direct mail, then you all of a sudden, once you get those deals closed, you have money coming in. You have the ability to scale up your business with mail, and you've also learned all of this stuff with cold calling. If you guys haven't already, I had Deshaun on the podcast a couple weeks ago. That is a great, great listen. Deshaun literally did what I just said. He was cold calling. He wanted to build up some money. It's hard. Cold calling is hard, and he talks all about how hard cold calling is, but he finally got a deal at the end of December. I think made $10,000 or $15,000 on that with an assignment fee, so he didn't have to go through and sell the property, and now he's sending mail. So he's scaling up his business. He's doing big things. So that is that second piece, is marketing. Like how do you want to market, and how much money do you have for marketing, essentially? So for people coming in and they want to do direct mail, direct mail is the number one thing we preach. It's the most scalable. It's the most scalable because it's less time intensive. You can send a ton of mail. You can start this business and start doing 6,000 mailers your first month. You can start doing 10,000 mailers by month 2, month 3 for sure. And it's so effective at weeding out uninterested sellers. And that's why we like direct mail so much, and it's extremely efficient with closing deals. So if you are looking to get in the business with direct mail, you typically want about 3 months worth of mail and about 5,000 mailer. 5,000. You need to have the money to send about 5,000 mailers. If you have money for 1,000 mailers, don't send mail. It's not the right thing for you. It's too much risk involved, and sending 1,000 mailers there's just a low possibility, honestly. But if you have money for 4,000 or 5,000 mailers, that's when you should look towards starting with direct mail, if that fits what you're looking for. So 5,000 mailers is going to cost anywhere from $3,000 to $3,500. I always suggest people starting with $4,000 to $6,000 when they are trying to start with direct mail. If you're trying to start with cold calling, like I said, you can start with a couple $100. Whether you do whatever you do with the education, obviously that varies. But as far as the marketing aspect of it, you can start with a couple $100. And then texting is a different animal. And there's a lot of regulations right now coming out with texting, and it is changing on a weekly basis, daily basis. Like texting is changing quite a bit as far as cold texting, all these different avenues. There's a lot of regulations. We still do texting. There's still ways to do texting for sure. There's some really good softwares. We use Launch Control, which is an amazing software for texting at bulk like we do. And that's probably closer to $600 a month, $700 a month, depending on your volume for sure. So really, as you go through that, you have education, you have marketing, and then the final thing is just ongoing costs in terms of maybe you have ongoing education costs, maybe you have ongoing software costs, which isn't that much. So realistically, guys, it's going to be a variable as far as if you're starting this business. And a lot of it matters with how much time you're willing to put into it. If you want to put more time into it and you don't have the money behind you, you can absolutely start with a couple $100. Where if you have more money and you don't have the time, let's do direct mail, and maybe you start with $10,000. I don't know, $6,000, $4,000, and you can do direct mail like that. So when there's really not, unless you have no money that you can invest in this business, you are going to need something for pretty much every business. You need to be able to find leads. Like, how are you going to get leads without having any money behind you? It's very, very difficult. But a couple $100 and a phone to make some phone calls is extremely powerful. Other than that, guys, I'm going to end it there. If you guys have not already, hit the subscribe button below if you're listening on YouTube. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple, please share it with a friend. Leave us a review. Let us know what you think. Other than that, thank you so much. We'll see you next time.
As always, thank you for joining. Please do us a huge favor and like and subscribe our YouTube channel and share this with a friend. It really means the world to Ron and I, but more importantly, it could help change the life of someone else. Thanks for joining, and we'll see you next episode.